So, most of us did watch last night's debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, which was held in Philadelphia. Who do you think won it? Going into this historic debate, I already knew that the fix was in. It was ABC, for crying out loud, which is owned by Disney. And Disney is known for being pretty liberal, and most of the mainstream news outlets are anti Trump. So let's start with the moderators. So we had David Muir, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and Lindsay Davis, who's a sorority sister, just like Kamala Harris. It was easily 3 against 1. Donald Trump was debating Kamala Harris as well as the moderators. The moderators right away were very biased. They kept fact checking Donald Trump several times. And I do not recall them fact checking Kamala Harris, not even once. When they would ask her a question, and Trump did this as well, they would not directly answer the question. Instead, they would talk about something else and avoid answering the question. But their attitude towards him was pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Condescending, kind of mean spirited. And they were not that way at all with Kamala Harris. So, Kamala Harris, her performance, it was better than I expected. I will give her that. She did a lot better than I was expecting her to do. But right from the beginning, the first question that they asked her about the country being better off than it was 4 years ago, she did not answer that question. Instead, she started talking about her single mother who raised her and her sisters, which had nothing to do with the state of this country, the current state of this country. And they seemed to be okay with her not answering that question. And she is not honest enough of a person to answer the question because the answer would have been no. No. The country is not better off than it was 4 years ago. A lot of people are hurting because of our economy. We have record illegal immigration, and these are under the Biden Harris policies, the administration that's currently in office right now, that's occupying the White House. And then she made the extreme accusations against Trump about banning abortion, signing into law Project 2025. And Trump later had to clarify that he has no involvement with Project 2025 because he doesn't. It's the Heritage Foundation. So if you want to blame someone for Project 2025, blame the Heritage Foundation because they're the ones who authored it and they're a conservative think tank. What they're proposing is not into law, and most of it will not go into law, even if Trump gets elected. And then abortion. She tried to say that Trump would sign an anti abortion bill, which isn't the case. He had to clarify that as well, saying that he thinks that it should be the decisions for the states to decide whether or not they want to outlaw abortion or offer it. But from a moral standpoint, abortion is wrong. I do not think that it's good for women. I know there are some exceptions with incest and the R word, but the majority of the abortions are not related to those exceptions at all. So we have to be realistic about that as well. And there are other options, other forms of contraception that can be used, even taking the morning after pill if you have to. So I don't see where it's necessary to have abortion decided on a federal level. I think it is better off being up to the states to decide whether or not they want to have that in their state. And the whole time she kept making faces at Donald Trump. You know, debate style, you have the split screen, and she was talking into the television too. But I don't know, I just didn't feel connected with her at all because I know of her track record, and she is part of the current administration that has really messed things up for a lot of Americans. And she baited Trump too. And Trump fell for it. he allowed Kamala Harris to get him off kilter. And she kept saying, I have a plan, I have a plan. Okay, so she has a plan. What is that plan? She did not state any policy during that debate. And she mentioned the economic opportunity economy. But when you really look back on the Biden Harris administration, that economic opportunity economy that she's calling it is not going to necessarily benefit Americans. In fact, I don't think it's going to benefit Americans at all. Instead, it's going to benefit those who have entered this country illegally, not American citizens. The first time homebuyer credit or assistance that she's giving, that's for illegals. That's not for Americans. That's going to benefit them. First generation, right? She wants to give them amnesty, and I believe that's what she'll do if she does get elected. And Joe Biden is probably working behind the scenes right now as we speak, trying to give them amnesty and legalize them as citizens so that they can have the right to vote in this election. I do think that Trump did pretty well with the debate. There were times where he could have handled things better, yes, but he willingly walked into the lion's den where he knew that he was going to debate against three people. And as I mentioned before, just like Kamala Harris, there were questions that Trump failed to answer as well. But I think Trump could have handled himself better and not allow Kamala Harris to get under his skin like that and upset him. He wasn't extreme, but I think he could have handled that better because he mentioned that there are illegal immigrants in Ohio who are eating animals. And I don't know if that's fact or not. The moderator said that he talked to, I can't remember the title, but someone who was, I guess, the city council or, I'm sorry, I don't know the title for it, but he spoke with them and they said that there's nothing like that going on there. However, there are real people who says that there is that going on. So I don't know. It could be true, it could not be true. Who knows? But I do believe that in some cultures, it is normal to consume animals such as cats and dogs and pets. But Trump was better at stating facts, actual facts, and stating policy. I'm glad that he finally clarified that he has no involvement with Project 2025, because for the longest time now, they've been using that to fearmonger us into believing that this is what Donald Trump is going to do. This is part of his agenda. But Trump's agenda is Agenda 47, which is on his website. And for the longest time, Kamala Harris had no policies on her website. All she was doing was accepting donations, accepting money. And he even clarified that he is not going to sign an anti-abortion law. So whoever is still saying that needs to stop because he said that it wasn't true. And that he does understand that there are exceptions, yes. But it should be the decision of the states to decide that. And she brought up the Central Park Five. That happened back in 1989. I think Trump was wrong for putting out that ad that he paid $80,000 for, saying that they should bring back the death penalty. Yes. And he never admitted to the young men being found not guilty because they were eventually exonerated many years after that. And to this day, he has not said that, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I should not have done that. But when you really think about it, Trump putting out that ad had nothing to do with those boys, those kids, being prosecuted like that. If you want to blame someone, blame the prosecutor. I believe her name is Linda Ferenstein, who is a Democrat. She was the one responsible for coercing those young men into confessing to a crime that they did not commit. And it had a major impact on their lives, a negative impact. Last I heard that their doing great things with their lives. As far as placing blame on someone, you should place more blame on the prosecutor, who was Democrat, and the state of New York, which is a Democratic state. But I wish Trump could have mentioned her track record as a prosecutor in California, because we all know that she kept inmates longer than their sentences in jail, and she tried to block evidence from someone who was on death row. Her goal was to maintain cheap prison labor, and she wanted to protect her reputation as a prosecutor. Therefore, she withheld that evidence. He should have mentioned that. And the fact that our government is using our tax dollars to fund illegal immigrants who are breaking federal law, invading this country. He didn't mention the financial impact that it's having on us, American citizens, and that it's taking away from our livelihood, from our well being. And the fact that they're getting the red carpet treatment for breaking the law in this country. Meanwhile, a lot of Americans are struggling, trying to make ends meet, and inflation is going up. He did mention that, but I really think he should have mentioned how our tax dollars are funding illegal immigration, massive immigration, illegal immigration. And I love how, towards the end of the debate, Trump mentioned that she's part of the current administration, the Biden Harris administration, which is in office right now, and they've had 3.5 years to prove that they're worthy of properly running this country and doing what's best for the American people. But they have not done that. Not at all. In fact, they've done quite the opposite. And he also mentioned that Joe Biden has the authority, the Biden Harris administration has the authority to sign an executive order right this very moment to close the border and secure the border. But they will not do it. And I think the reason for the massive illegal immigration is that the Democrats are doing this so that they can stay in power. They want the illegals coming to the country to vote Democrat. For a long time, the Democrats have relied on the black vote to win elections. If they were to receive less than, I believe it's 85% or 80% of the black vote, they cannot win an election. And the fact that the older generation is passing on and more of the younger generation is participating in voting in elections. And those of us who are younger, we are actually asking for things and wondering, what is voting Democrat? How has that benefited blacks, us as black people, for all these decades? In fact, it has done the opposite. So why should we continue voting for them and not getting anything for our votes? And that scares them too. So if they can have illegals coming in this country replace the black vote and make our votes irrelevant, because we've always had our vote when it comes to elections, to decide elections. And I believe that after this election, if they were to make all of the illegal immigrants, or most of them, American citizens and give them the right to vote, those of us who are African American or Black American would become politically irrelevant in this country. No more would you see them pandering to us. No more would they need our votes. Why would they? We're politically irrelevant. And that's happened in California already. I think we're about 8% of the population there. And we're politically irrelevant in the state of California. And there was no talk of reparations from either side. Neither party supports reparations for Black Americans, for the descendants of slaves. And recently in California, the Black Caucus there did whatever they could do to prevent from bringing that bill to the floor. That is really sick. It's really sad that your own caucus would go against you. That's how bad it is. The mainstream news is not talking about this. Maybe they've mentioned it in California, but that's even more reason, I think, to vote against the Democrats. even if you don't necessarily vote for Trump, if you were to vote third party or write your own name on the ballot, because that's a vote against the Democrats who have wronged us for such a long time and who continue to do it and a lot of times still get away with it. And if Kamala Harris wins, she's saying that, well, she says that Trump is going to run the same playbook. But we all know that if Kamala Harris wins, we're going to see more of the same playbook. The same playbook of the Biden Harris administration, maybe even 10 times worse. I believe she's going to bring in more East Indians because that's who she identifies with. Kamala Harris is not a black woman. I don't think she is. If she were a black woman, she would have defended herself last night and even the time before during the interview with her and Tim Walz, but she did not. A real black woman would have said, hey, I am black. This is my origin. This is my heritage. Yes, I do identify as black, but she did not do that. Not once has she identified as being black. She's identified as being Asian. She is identified as being Indian. And there's nothing wrong with being Asian or Indian. Even Trump said he has no problem with her nationality, with her heritage. But don't lie about your heritage in order to sway blacks to vote for you. Most of us now, we do not play identity politics. There are still some of us who do. And there were a lot of us, including myself, who did during the Obama administration when he was running. But having Obama in office was an eye-opener for a lot of us, and we no longer vote on identity politics. More of us are voting on policy and how it's going to benefit us. We don't care what you look like or where you come from. It's all about your policy and how it affects us. So yes, I do think that Donald Trump is the winner of last night's presidential debate. He could have done better. But Kamala Harris, she did do better than I thought she would do. There are rumors going around that she was actually wearing an earpiece. I don't know. It could be true, it could not be true. May or may not, I don't know. But it was biased because it was ABC, and I believe Kamala Harris is very good friends with the president of the network. And the fact that the Democrats have asked for so many demands during the debate. With Trump, he's easy. He's like, I'll debate you anywhere, anytime, any place. Why so many restrictions for the Democrats? Doesn't that kind of cause you to think or wonder why are they asking for so many demands? If they're that great, if they're that great for the country, if they're confident in their abilities, why not just have a regular debate and run a fair election? But I think it's more likely for her to cheat and get away with it because, as we've seen, there has been a shift just in the last 15 years or so. The Democrats have more power with the media than the Republicans do right now. And it's all about the money trail. Where's the money coming from? Who's funding the corporations and the networks? In my opinion, she has a better chance at cheating and getting away with it because even the media, they have said nothing negative about her. And my question is, if the Democrats are so pro-democracy, why did they not actually vote on a candidate once Biden dropped out? Instead, they put Kamala Harris in there and just said, okay, this is your candidate now. You have no say in this. That is not democracy, people. Democracy would have been being able to vote for a candidate, a Democratic candidate for the president. And she had the lowest approval rating of any politician. Now she's the best thing. The media has hyped her up big time. But I notice that those of us who are online, who are part of independent grassroots media, who are not funded by big time corporations, we're speaking the truth. We're being more truthful. And it seems like more of us are hip to what's going on, what's really going on. And we're not buying what they're trying to sell to us. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I am going to vote for him this time because of the economy. Our economy is in really bad shape right now, as is our country. We need to have secure borders. And I think that they should send the illegal immigrants back to their country. If they want to come here legally, then they should do that because that isn't fair to the citizens of this country, nor is it fair to the immigrants who immigrated to this country the right way, through the proper channels, legally. Trump did win the debate, in my opinion. I'm not a diehard Trump supporter, but I want a better economy and I want a safer country. Thank you for listening, everyone. Our time is now. Let's change the world.